Hi, teammates. Thank you for joining this edition of Let's Talk, where that's all we do. We talk. I have a great guest lined up for today. Her name is Samantha Cooper, and I'm going to bring her into the fray right now. We're going to jump right into it with no long intro on the first time. I hope Instagram does not trip today. Turn on my sound. Can everybody hear me fine? There she is.
Gotcha. Hey, John.
You can hear me fine, Samantha?
Yep, all
Okay,
good.
so let me fix my camera a little bit. So we're good to go. Samantha, first of all, thank you very much for coming on Let's Talk. This is going to be a dope episode, I'm sure. Um, I am a notoriously poor intro man. So I will ask you to introduce yourself very briefly and let the people know your name. I already did that, but what you do and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started with the question.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for having me on, Sean, and thanks for the instructions because I've never done IG Live, and I was like, so like good. Okay, so my name is Samantha Cooper. I'm from Sudbury, Canada, so like a small city in northern Canada. Um, yeah, I grew up in the city in Canada. I went to college in Connecticut, Fairfield University. Played 5 years there and then went pro. So I just finished my 6th year of pro overseas while I also finished my master's degree in sports psychology. And that's kind of how we connected. And yeah, that's much it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So we're going to touch base on all of that. We're going to start out how you first got started playing overseas, and what I would like to know is when you finished your college career, did you have an agent, or did you have to look for an agent, or did they come to you? How did you find your first agent?
Okay, yes. I did have an agent contact me. So I kind of interviewed, I think, three of them, and then chose the one that I felt the most comfortable with, which was at the time a Canadian agency.
What what made you feel that that was the right agency for you? I mean, it's hard to know until you actually are with an agency if they're the right one for you. But what gave you the feeling like, okay, I'm going to choose this one?
I think it was just the connection. They had represented some of my friends, so I knew that they had good experiences with them, and that helped. So it was someone that was kind of known, and I didn't know at the time. I liked that they were based out of Canada, because I thought that would be helpful. But of course, then when you move overseas, it's a little bit different because
Right.
that's the time zone difference. So that was kind of a learning curve. But basically I think it's great to reach out to athletes that are represented by that agent, and that's what I did. And I think, we're very honest with each other, I find, in this overseas circuit because we want the best for each other. We look out for each other. So I will give you an honest opinion on my agent. And I think
Right.
that's what they did for me, and that helped me sign with them.
Looking back on it, you just finished your sixth or seventh season? Sixth?
Sixth, yeah.
Okay, so you're a vet now. But looking back on when you finished college and you before you came overseas, looking back on it, how prepared were you for what you were about to embark on?
It was definitely a learning curve at first. I think I was lucky that I started in Luxembourg, which is like a tiny country.
Mhm.
I speak French and they speak French, so like that part was nice. It's a very safe country. Like, so I think
Mhm.
I went into a great situation. Like my teammates and my car, and I had a car and meals, and so everything was great. But I was not aware of how cutthroat overseas basketball was until my import teammate got fired. And I was like, wow, this happens. Like, okay, like this is a job. So I think I was semi prepared, but it wasn't until I was in the setting where I was like, okay, like I need to show up each and every day.
How do you think you could have been more prepared? Like, do you think it was more your responsibility to find more information out, or do you think your agent should have informed you more or schooled you more, things like that?
Yeah, I think it's probably both. Like I think it could
Mhm.
have been discussed. I know they probably don't want to scare maybe a first year player that this could happen, so I
Right.
understand that. And probably I could have done more research on my own to better understand like this is something that can happen.
Mhm.
So I think it was a bit of both, but I think I also was just so excited to go and play that I didn't. do like thorough research, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's something that I definitely suggest to players is like make sure you reach out and really know what you're going into and what's going to happen, because it's better to prepare yourself than to be in it and be like, what's happening.
Yeah. I have one more thing what players could use as a resource.
Amen. Get the book, folks.
Okay, enough shameless self-promotion. Where have you played overseas? What countries have you played in so far?
I started in Luxembourg, and then I went to Sweden, Greece, France, Hungary, Mexico, and Germany.
Yeah, you've been there.
It's been around.
You've been there. What do you think are the differences in the different leagues? You don't have to go by every country, but there's obviously differences between leagues in different countries.
Right.
In the countries that you've played in, what do you think was maybe the toughest for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say France was the toughest competition, I would say. And I had to change my role there. I was brought in as a 4 and I had to play as a 3 because I positionally the 4 was too physical for me. So that was also a learning curve where you have to be aware of your skill set and be willing to do whatever, the team needs. So when the coach said like we're gonna move you to the 3, like okay, like that's like so help me get better at coming off the ball
Right.
screens and making more guard like decisions. So that was definitely tough. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, even Hungary, which I played last year, was also great just because there's so many Euro League teams and Euro Cup teams, and that was also, I feel like I was really at my peak at that moment, and it was kind of eye opening to be like, okay, like you still have a lot to work on, like you still have a lot to do, because I was on a lower team in Hungary. So while it was great to compete against these teams, it was also a great reminder to like you can never stop growing as a basketball player, and you should always try to get better in individual practices and whatever it may be. So that was a good reminder for me last year too, I think.
Was it a adjustment like to realize that this is now your job? Like you are a professional athlete. You have to carry yourself that way. You have to eat a certain way. You have to, everything is dedicated to you being a professional athlete. It's different than when you're in college where everything is catered for you.
Right.
But now you're on your own and it's your job. And like you said, you had that shock when your teammate got fired. How long did it take you to adjust to realize, hey, this is my job. This is my 24/7.
Yeah, I think maybe my first 2 months of my first year, it was more so like college, like, and I was lucky that the gym was close by, and I realized soon after that, and I think I realized it really when my teammate was let go, that I was like, okay, like we need to take this seriously. Like if you really want to make a career out of this, then like you need to be serious about it. And it's like you said, it's so different from college. Like you have to go to the gym on your own. You have to go lift on your own. Maybe like this past year in Germany, we had team sessions together, so that was great. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you're just you need to do what you need to do to play. And if that means you go lift every day, then you have to go lift every day. So that was something that, yeah, it was like, okay, nobody here is going to hold your hands, and they're not going to, like, if you don't perform, then that's a problem because they are paying you, and they're not shy about saying that. If you have a bad game, like I've been told before after a bad game, like, why am I paying you? So, like, this is my job, and it's like sometimes that's a reminder. You don't want to hear that, especially from management, but sometimes
Right.
you're like, okay, what do I need to do? And personally, like, I love sweets, and I had to, like, when I was in France, I was eating all the time. Like, I just couldn't stop hooked. And I was like, okay, like, I can't do this because this isn't, it's not helping me on the court. So, maybe if I was going to play as a 4 instead of a 3, sure, keep eating. But, like, now I need to, like, be quick. And so it's just all those things, those little things, like your diet, your gym, what you do in your off time, like making sure you're taking care of your body, because they don't care. Like you need to show up and be ready.
Yeah. One thing that I tell a lot of the people that I mentor, especially, but also in the consultations that I do with others, I make sure I tell them, like, you can't have bad practices. Like, your practices are not for that year. It's not for that team. Your
Mhm.
practices are trying to get you better for your next contract,
Yeah.
right? So you can't have a bad practice. You can't not want to go to practice. You can't want to take a day off because, of course, if you're tired, you're injured, of course, you have to take care of your body. That's a part of it. But realistically, you need to do everything every day for your next contract. You are there, you have that contract, everything's good. You're probably there on a 1 year deal, maybe
Right.
a 1+1.
Right.
Okay. So everything that you do is geared for your next contract.
Right.
That's I think that's something that a lot of players they don't realize. They think, "Oh, I'm doing this for the team." No, you're doing it for yourself
Yeah.
in the first line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are shocked when the next season, if they're recruited by a certain team or coach, that coach will reach out to your
Yes.
previous coach. Like they will
Yes.
do their homework and their research. So yeah, if you're taking days off in practice, they will tell them that. So absolutely, like every day matters. Every day is important.
For women's basketball, it's a little bit different than men's basketball overseas. Whereas there's a lot more leagues, there's a lot more teams, there's a lot more opportunities for men to be an import player overseas, right? But for women, it's not like that. So the competition is very fierce, especially for the high-paying jobs. Those are going to WNBA players. So the competition for women's that are finishing college to come overseas is incredibly fierce. Um, do you have any advice for someone that's a woman that's in college but would like to continue their career overseas? Any kind of advice what you would tell them as far as how to go forward?
Yeah, other than getting your book, I think that would help. I think your agent really is important, and I don't want to scare anybody in that. Like, if you
Yeah.
choose to say the wrong one, it's okay. Now there's different rules with FIBA, and you can change your agent and whatnot. But really, your agent is important, and it has to be someone that you know cares about you and that is putting your best interests in mind and just has connections also. Like it's really so big. And the best way to do that is to ask around and to ask them where they realistically see you, and you also want them to be honest with you. Like
Yeah.
if different leagues are suited to different types of play, right? And you might not suit a certain league. That doesn't mean you're not a good player, but you just can't play in that league, and that's okay. But I think it's important that your agent is honest with you and they won't put you in a position where um, you don't play that type of basketball and you're on a team, and that's just kind of setting you up for failure.
Failure. Yeah.
I do think your agent is hugely important, but again, it's okay. Like if you don't think that that's the right fit, you can change and like don't be stressed. But that is the major thing. That, and I would also say like show up in shape, like make sure to the team.
Yeah. I tell people also like you're on audition as soon as you get off the plane.
Yeah,
They're watching you, they're watching what you eat, how you if you turn your nose up at the food or something like that, they're watching every move you make. And don't think that you're going to come off the plane and play yourself into shape. You don't
um,
have that time. You don't have that luxury.
yeah,
You better be in almost peak condition when you get off that plane.
yes. No, absolutely. Like they're looking, like they're checking everything. Like, are they the kilos? Are they the height that they said they were?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, so don't lie about it either. Like,
Hey,
be honest.
I got a really quick story, a funny story. I know a guy. This is a true story. His agent put in that he was another height than what he was. He was shorter than what the agent had enlisted.
Okay.
He got off the plane, got picked up, took him in the car. They took him to the hotel. They left. They came back 3 hours later and said, "We have a flight for you for tomorrow. You're not the size that we thought you were." And he was there literally like 24 hours and back on the plane going home. So
That is
you
crazy.
gotta you gotta hope that your agent is not out there trying to trick people just to get you a job because like hey they are looking, they will measure you,
Yes.
they they know they if that's what they're looking for, your agent better have told them exactly what type of player you are.
Yeah. No, 100%. That is a crazy story though. Within 24 hours, like that's actually insane.
It was
But
it was crazy.
that's yeah. But I mean, it's true. Like I think 4 out of the 6 years I played, the first things we do when we get off the plane, other than like your cardio test and whatever, is height and weight. Like they're serious about that. So.
Yeah. Um, this goes out to everyone that's watching, whether you're watching for 10 minutes or the whole time we're on. If you would like to ask a question, I'll try to infuse it into the live. So someone had just written a question, and I'm going to ask it right now. Levin23 BIB or BLB. Does she or has she played in the WNBA or have plans to play there? That's directed at you, Samantha.
Okay, so the answer is no, and this goes into like being realistic, where like that's not realistic for me. I'm very much so a European style player, and positions in the WNBA are very minute right now. Like now they're finally gonna have some more teams, and Toronto's gonna have one, which is awesome. But yeah, that's not my goal. I know myself, and I'm not good enough to make it there. But I can play well in other European leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So now we're going to move on to the other side of you. You are a multifaceted woman, and we're going to talk about the other side of you. You mentioned it before that you now have your master's degree. What is your master's degree in specifically?
sport and performance psychology.
So, what made you decide to study that while you were in college, and what would you like to do in the future down the road with the knowledge that you have?
So I started my master's when I was in Greece, so that was my 4th year overseas. And reasoning behind it, originally I started because I just love school and I like psychology. So, and as you know, once you get overseas, you have a lot of free time and you can use it in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
I always knew I wanted to get my master's. And I just also found that the resources in sports psych were kind of lacking, and even for myself, like going overseas, you know, there's a language barrier oftentimes. Culture is going to be different. Dealing with different people, different personalities, and having to communicate within a team. There's just so many skills that I thought were related to sports psychology,
Right.
and that I could put myself in. And that's, you know, kind of why I went that way. And then I absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do an internship last year with a couple of teams in my hometown, and it really cemented for me like how necessary this resource is, just to give players and athletes like an opportunity to better their mental health, and to I really think that you play your best when you feel your best. And if we're not talking about what's going on mentally, then you're not going to be at your best physically.
Right.
I think that's huge. And you see, like, you're starting to see it a little bit, like it's starting to grow.
Yeah.
It is still surprised, I think, but it's starting to grow. And I think that we're still not really understanding what it is. And it's not like you're not going to a shrink, and like you're not crazy, and like there's a lot of people still think that it's like that's not true, but
stigmatisms.
yeah, and that I find has been like hard for people to realize. But I also find the people that I've worked with, since I'm now working in this role while I was playing, is they feel like a lot of, like, I had a client that was in a shooting slump, and after a couple of sessions she was like, wow, like I feel great again, like I feel like I have more control over my shot and whatnot. And when you're in overseas, you don't necessarily get that from your coaching staff. Like you might in your individuals, and yes, they want to help you, but you have to perform. Like they're only going to give you so many games where they're like, oh, it's okay, it's a slump. No, like you have to put up your numbers. So working on your mental game is another way to help yourself once you get in that practice time. Some teams, you know, you might only have an hour and a half practice. You only have the court for that long. Like you can't stay longer. So what can you do where in college you could go and shoot on the gun, you know, at midnight if you wanted to? Here you can't do that maybe. So work on your mental game. And that's kind of where I want to go with this, is I want to work with pro athletes and with teams, and to really give them that resource that I think they need, that teams and clubs really aren't providing at this like very moment.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go more into that in a second. You mentioned something earlier also, that there's more awareness for mental health for athletes, and A lot of famous athletes are coming out and say, "Hey, I've had phases where I was depressed or something like that." So there's a lot more awareness. But like you said, also there's still a little bit of a stigmatism
Mm-hmm.
where we as athletes we think we're
Mm-hmm.
invincible, right? And
Yeah.
that that giving in to maybe a mental health issue or something like that is a sign of weakness.
Right.
Um, do you see any downside to the I would say I don't want to say hype, but to the hype of the mental awareness that's starting to become more and more prevalent? Do you see any negatives to that right now?
Um, that's a great question. I'm pretty biased. So I would say no, and I think it's great that awareness is, you know, rising and such like that. But I do think that there is. I'm gonna tread very lightly with this, but I
Go ahead.
do think it's a little bit easier to blame certain things
Mhm.
on maybe a lack of effort, or you're just not in the gym as much as you should, and it's kind of a crutch.
Mhm.
And I really hope that's not the case, but I'm sure in some instances that happens. And that I think would be the downside is now I think as a society we're very like in tune to say, okay, yeah, that's what it is, like no problem.
Mhm.
And that would be the only thing that I would be cautious about is yes, mental training is so important, but it cannot replace the physical
Right,
component as well. Like, you have
right,
to be doing.
right. Um, what do you say to naysayers? Because think about like old heads, for example, people like me, right? That say, oh, in my era, we were mentally tougher, we were stronger, the game was better back then, right? So, what do you say to naysayers who, yeah, who say that today's athlete is softer mentally than previous generations?
I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion, first of all. But I do think now athletes are under a lot of stress with the rise of social media and stuff
Yeah.
like that and constant comparison. Um, I think that has become very problematic. Like it's a double-edged sword. It's great, but it's also bad in some instances, and I have some teammates that or people in the past that right after the game they're looking at their stats and like I get it that yes, this is your job. Yes, your numbers are important, but also how your team is doing is important and how your team is playing. And I think that athletes now just have a lot of pressure. And I'm not saying athletes in the past didn't, but I think it's coming from a lot of different angles. And
Right.
I mean, you see, even in the NCAA tournament, when Iowa was playing, and I think her name was Gabby, the girl that was in the UConn game. And anyway, she got called for um, UConn got called for the offensive, so Iowa
Wow.
had the ball
Mhm.
and she had to delete her social media because she was getting so much hate mail, and I'm like that's not right, so I think that's a part of sport that comes with, yes, we want more visibility, of course, but it also comes with people like this that are sitting on their couch and saying things. So like I'm sure everyone has dealt with hardships in the past, but I do think now social media places a lot of pressure on the athletes.
That's a good lead into what I want to talk about next, and that's more about like what we have going on together. And I think where you say like there's a lot of negativity, especially in social media, internet world. There's lots of trolls, things like that. But the internet can be used for good, and you and I are one example of that. So I'll explain how we kind of use the power of the internet for good. We met uh, online, and we kind of clicked, and then I asked you to write for my blog post, what I do quite often, and I have a guest speaker about a guest writer about something that they're very passionate about or very knowledgeable about to help with my readers. And your article was very well received, by the way. And so that's how we kind of started vibing and clicking. And then it was good timing because we just started throwing ideas at each other, And I remember the where it really clicked was that we should do something together. We should collaborate with something together. Was when I was preparing for a meeting and with a GM of a pro team, and I realized that my mentorship, I can do certain things. Like I can definitely, from my side as being a former player and as former coach, there are things that I can go into with the mentorship that are very beneficial to an athlete. But there are also limitations to what I can do when it comes to clinical things. I cannot explain why your brain is wired the way it is. That is not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
So I realized that I would need to read up on that. So I asked you for a couple of book choices, what you might know that might be able to help someone like me who is a novice in that area. And then you were gracious enough to talk to me about that stuff and offer some books that I should read. And then I was like, hey, wait a minute. This is what she does. The stuff that I need to get better at, this is what she does. And then that's how we kind of like started throwing some ideas back and forth. So um, I think we managed to put something together really good for hoopers. So like I said before, there were some holes in what I felt or limitations in what I could do for hoopers, and then you've kind of filled that other gap. And can you talk a little bit about the advantage that what we're doing, how it could help players or teams in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really glad we ended up connecting on that because I think it will be hugely helpful. And from my angle, and we've discussed this a couple of times, but what I think this is most helpful for is you get twofold. You get the consulting aspect from yourself, and you've been around, like you know how it is, and you know the European scene, you know the American scene. Like you can help from vets to rookies to whatever, imports to homebred players. Like so, you have that aspect with yourself, and then we have the sport psychology aspect for myself, where any not issues you have, but just mental training in itself, like helping you become the best player you can be by helping you work on your confidence, goal setting, just being resilient and learning the different types of adversity you're going to deal with and how to cope with it, how to get through it, because it's tough being like an athlete, especially in import. Like it's not easy. So
Right,
just having people that are on your side that are, and what I think is one of the best parts of this is we are a partnership, but and yes, we want to work with the team, but we're not also a part of that team. So I
right,
think these
right,
people coming and talking about some of the things that they might be going through that you might be careful sharing with the GM or someone affiliated with the team. And I think
right,
we unbiased and objective,
right.
we really have their physical and mental health in mind as our best interests. And I think that it's going to be great, and that is basically what we're trying to do with this.
Yeah, I mean, so for those of you maybe just tuning in, what we're doing is we have like a partnership that we are reaching out to teams, first of all, in Germany, and we'll be reaching out to teams in the next days, weeks, months, where we offer our services as, like you said, me on the mentor side and you as the psychology ace that can go more and deeper into the clinical things, where we could mentor and work with a team. And the benefits that that team would have through that is really uncharted waters for professional basketball overseas. I don't think there's too many people doing what we plan to do. And yeah, I think it's a really good partnership, kind of like peanut butter and jelly. And um, yeah, I'm really excited to get started. We're really at the beginning stages of this.
Mm.
And, I joked around with you the other day and said, we're going to look back in 3 years and
Yeah,
5 years, and we're going to be like, hey, we were shit at the beginning. We were absolute crap. But we'll live and we'll learn. And I'm sure that this is something that once teams are aware of it, that it's out there, and that how much they could benefit and not be afraid of it. We're not trying to turn their players into zombies or anything like that. And they realize for a team what the benefits are to them. Um, I think it'll be pretty good. So I'm pretty proud of what we've put together. I'm really thankful that we use the internet for the
Right.
good,
The
and
positive
and
side.
right, and yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah, what I wanted to ask you about as far as sports psychology goes is, what do you think is the biggest hurdle when you're working with an athlete? What do you think is the biggest hurdle to help maybe a blockage that they might be having?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it definitely depends on the athlete and what kind of problem they're presenting with, but sometimes it's a self-awareness piece, and we try to look at the picture as a whole, and how are your behaviors and your efforts and whatnot contributing to this,
Right,
and we want to be making sure that we're taking our own ownership over what's going on and how to better that and how to fix that. And I think it also gives the athlete a lot of autonomy in fixing whatever it is that they want to fix and becoming a better player, because they're choosing to do that themselves,
right,
and they're guiding why it is that way and how they can change it. And I think it just gives you so much, yeah, like a great feeling and autonomy, and being the person that's like, okay, maybe I was slacking a little bit, and maybe
mhm,
that's why I'm going through a slump. And but it's not always that, of course, but I think it's just great when athletes really look inside themselves and self-reflect, and then go through that way. And it's very vulnerable. Like, it's very hard to do that
mhm.
sometimes, and that can be tough, but it's also very like empowering and enlightening.
Um, I want to jump back to the basketball side of you. Um, how long do you think you want to play?
Ugh, that's a hard question. If you asked me at the beginning of this year, I would say this was going to be my last year. But I think I have one or two left
Oh,
in me.
okay, I got you. We had a question I saw. I got to scroll back down. I had a question. There was a question. Um, oh, strive above others. Actually, we answered this. You probably came late, but my question is, are you going to try out for the NBA? What's the biggest flaw you need to work on to play at that level? We've kind of answered that, but can you say something a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think the flaw is a good question. Like, what can I improve on? I think for me, I'm very much an IQ player versus an athleticism player, and I think that would have to be a primary goal of mine if I wanted to get to that level. Is I have to be able to move a bit quicker, especially in my position. Like, I am a stretch four, so I think that if I could really add in the skill level to be a three as well as a stretch four, I think that it would be easier for me. But that would be it, probably.
Um, of course, the season just ended. You made it to the finals. Um, and where do you see yourself playing next year? Would you like to come back to Germany, or do you have your agent talking about different options? What are you thinking about for next season?
Yeah,
I know it's early.
yeah. I'm totally open to everything. I told him to leave everything open. I did enjoy my time in Germany. It was really nice. We played Euro Cup too, so that was fun. And Germany is just very safe and easy
Mhm.
to.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I definitely also really loved Greece when I was in Greece. So I wouldn't be opposed to that, but definitely just keeping everything open and then see what my options are at some point.
Okay. There's a method to my madness. I asked you that for this follow-up question. You have mentioned Greece, Germany, and you also mentioned before Hungary.
Mhm.
Where did you play at before Germany? Hungary?
Hungary,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're going to use Greece, Hungary, Germany. Okay, those are the three countries. We're going to
Uh,
play Kiss, Kill, or Marry
oh goodness. Okay.
with those three countries. You have to
Okay.
kiss one, you have to kill one, and you have to marry one. Which ones are which?
Okay.
I'm
I think
throwing you under the bus right now.
yeah. It's like, yeah, this hard, but I think marry Germany just because
You
they
would wait.
like they
What's Germany? Kiss?
marry marry.
You're marrying Germany. Okay,
Yeah,
you're marrying Germany.
I
Okay.
feel like it's like a long term country. Like I understand
Mhm.
why you say. Like I
Yeah,
get it. Like they
yeah,
have their stuff figured
yeah,
out. Really. Like
yeah,
it was good. I mean, the winters are a little depressing though.
yeah,
That's the only thing I'll say. The rest is like okay, like great.
yeah. Mhm.
I would kiss Greece. I just love Greece. Minus some like the country stuff going on, financial and whatnot. And then Hungary, I would have to kill just because it's. I mean, it's great. Like Budapest is amazing,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't stick out like the others.
I got you. Last question. How does someone get in contact with you? Maybe to pick your brain, or maybe somebody needs to reach out. They have some issues that they may want to reach out to you and talk to you about. How can somebody contact you? How are you able to help someone in that kind of situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Through you, if that's okay with you. Also, if they're
Of
watching,
course, of course.
of course, Instagram or my email. I could also provide my email, but through our partnership, like we had talked about how we eventually want to work with a team. But of course, like if individuals come out as well, like we're totally open to that.
Right.
So yeah, anything through you, through my Instagram, through my email, anything. Definitely happy to help.
Okay. So that's it. I'm thankful that you came on. I'm thankful that you are willing to go into this partnership for me, and I look forward to us growing and looking back on these days and being like, "Hey, we've come a long way." And basketball in Europe has come a long. If we're successful, that means that we're changing the ideas of people in positions of power
Yeah,
in Europe. So I think that'll be a positive thing, not just for us, but also for the athletes that we aim to help. So I'm thankful for that, and I wish you a great day out there in Canada. No, are you still in Canada right now? Or are you
yeah,
going? Are you in New York?
yeah, in Canada. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, when do you go to New York?
Next
Okay.
week.
So we'll be in touch anyway. But to all of those of you that are out there watching, please take your mental health seriously, whether you're an athlete or not. But especially, that's what we're looking to help as athletes. So please don't be afraid. There's no stigmatism. Talk to me. I can put you in touch with Samantha, or you can contact her directly and really take these things serious. And it's a very important thing that we hope we can transfer to the minds of athletes, that they're not crazy and they're not in like they're not Iron Men and Iron Women that can't be injured. Um, so yeah, Samantha, have a good one. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you so much. And we'll be talking anyway. You get out of here. I'm going to say goodbye to the people in the hall.
All right, awesome. Thank you for having me, and yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever comes out of this.
Okay,
All right, take
get
care.
out of here.
Bye bye.
So, teammates, that was another very interesting, very nice interview. I'm really pleased to be able to work with her, and hopefully, what we're trying to do will resonate in the basketball community, and we can help some athletes out, and yeah, and reduce some of the stigmatisms that surround mental health in athletes. That's it for me tonight. It is now 10:38 my time, and I'm still drinking my Coke that's going to keep me up all night. Excuse me. So, like I said, if I can help any of you, please contact me. If you need me to get you in contact with Samantha, please contact me. And if you watched for 1 minute or the whole 38 minutes that we've been on, I appreciate you, and I hope to see you again in another episode. Keep your eyes out for my next guest. Old man, or not old man, old head out.